Everyone, welcome to Jube School Live with creative wellness facilitator and visual artist Paula Timm. We are absolutely delighted to be back again. My name is Karen Youngberg and I am the cultural development specialist at the Jubilee Auditorium in Alberta, Canada. We want to send a great big thank you out to Global TV in Edmonton and Calgary for partnering with Jube School for their Global Family Zone. Make sure you check them out. The video will be posted there after we're done. Hi, Carly.
Hi, my name's Carly McKee-Birtwhistle. I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator at the Southern Alberta Jubilee Auditorium. And we're so excited for this workshop. I just want to come on here and quickly let you know about all of our social media accounts. We're at Jube School on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, here on YouTube. So make sure that you like us and follow us so that you can keep up to date with all the workshops we're doing. And now it's time for the big show. I'd like to introduce to you the one and only Paula Timm.
Hello. Oh my goodness. Thank you guys. This is so exciting. Yes, I am Paula Timm and I am going to be your facilitator of Mindful Mark Making. It's a workshop I've developed over time. So let's get to it. I want to tell you a little bit about myself. And before I do that, I want to just thank the Jube School, Jubilee Auditorium, Karen, Carly, and team for bringing this kind of opportunity to Albertans. Wow, artists and kids and adults, we so appreciate the programming you guys are putting out. And Global TV, Edmonton and Calgary for having us and hosting this and putting it on your sites so people can access it across Alberta. Thank you. From an artist, this is such a great opportunity and pretty exciting. I'm in my studio. As you can see, I've got some art, my art behind me. And we're gonna do a mindful mark making workshop today. What is that, right? Well, we'll get into that in a bit, but first I want to tell you why I developed this workshop. So a long time ago, when I was a little wee one, I had this secret dream. I wanted to be a creative person. I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to do all the things, and I just wasn't quite sure how to do that. So I just kept that little dream in my little nugget of a heart and protected it until every once in a while I'd eke it out a little bit and shared it, and it seemed a little bit scary or a little bit doable until I was an adult and I was like, yeah, I still don't know how to do this artist thing. So some of you might relate, and that's why I share that bit, because being creative is kind of tough. It's super vulnerable. You're really putting your heart out there and expressing fully. So as I grew and was working other jobs and stuff, I was finding ways to find my way into creative worlds, taking art classes and such, but it was never enough. And then one day I got sick. I got really sick. I got a chronic illness, and it took me off the workforce for a long time, and I'd be in hospitals, I'd be sick on the couch, and I had a lot of extra time as I was getting stronger to get creative. So in those times, I might not have been fully strong enough to make a painting on an easel, but I could make some smaller art, and I could learn more about classes that would teach me more skills. So I did that for a long time, and what I realized was that creativity was a way to get me well. It helped me express, and it helped me understand my illness and how I was feeling about it. So through that, I really realized that I needed to pursue a creative and joyful life. And that's why I'm here today, because I'm doing that. I made a big promise to myself that I'd get out into life and I would connect with you all and share the gift of creativity and how it can connect us to our own wellness. So in my storytelling of that, it's really important because some of these mindful marks that you see behind me, they came from an exercise much like the one we're going to do today. So what is this mindful word? What does it mean? It probably means a little bit something different to everybody. I think there's different ways to feel mindful or to get mindful. Some examples I can think about are yoga, right? So if you're doing stretches and deep breathing, you're connecting to your body and you're slowing down, because we get kind of anxious and busy in life. And so meditation, maybe even exercise can be a way of being mindful. So today in our workshop, it's going to be all about you guys finding your creative voice through mindful marks. So I thought what we should do is talk a little bit about supplies. And that way, if you're not completely ready, I'll give you guys a few minutes to find some supplies. And don't forget, you can press pause anytime on the live stream or even after on the recording. And so you can press pause and run get your supplies that you might not have, and then come back and press play, and you'll catch up with where you left off. So we need paper, right? So we can work on any kind of surface. I happen to have one of these big jumbo watercolor tablets, and that's what I'm going to work on today. But if you have regular copy paper or watercolor paper, even a canvas, sometimes we have old art that we want to cover over. This would be a great example to get that going. So paper or a surface to paint on. Paint, that would be helpful. So just some regular watercolor paints is what I'm going to be using today. If you have acrylic paints, that's okay. Speaking of acrylic, the magic sauce for today, I find, is white acrylic paint. This is going to be a trick I'll show you on how to do a few things in a bit. Paintbrushes, of course, and I would recommend for mindful marks a few different sizes. Nothing fancy, but maybe you can get a small, a medium, and a large one. Water. So you need a cup of water. So you could use just a regular cup from your kitchen. Maybe you have a bucket or a glass jar, whatever you have. And then some mark making tools. So what if you had some crayons or some jelly pens? Do you know what jelly pens are? These kind of guys? We'll use these much later. And so if you don't have them now, it's something you could maybe look for later, and I'll show you how you can use them in this process. Crayons. Oh, what about oil pastels? Do you guys have any oil pastels? They kind of look like these guys. The chalk pastels might not work as well. If you've taken classes with me before, you know I love the Woody Stabilo crayons. So if you have those would be fun to use. So basically, pencils and pencil crayons. I have some water-soluble crayons and just some regular pencils and stuff. So as you can see, there's no rules here. You just want to find some supplies that you can both paint and mark with in a bit. A little bit of water. Oh, one more thing. Tape. Do you guys have masking tape at home? This is painter's tape. Washi tape would work in a pinch. I've even used some Scotch tape before. So we're going to use the tape on our paper so that our paper doesn't get all wrinkly. So again, it's not the worst to not have it. So while you're looking for those, and if you're ready, that's great. I wanted to do a little creative warm-up. So what we're going to do is just stand up at our art tables. I'm going to push my chair aside. And this is a great way for me to settle my body, to get some breathing going on. And it's also one of my little tips to get out of your creative funks. Like, you can move your body a bit when you're at your art stations, whether it's your easel or at a table, and your marks move differently. So what I want you to do is grab 2 paintbrushes. If you don't have a paintbrush handy, that's okay. You could use 2 pencils. So I'm going to put my 2 in here, and I'm going to take one. I'm going to put it in my hand. And as you can see, the way I'm holding it kind of looks like what? What do you think this looks like? Kind of looks like I'm about to write my name. See how I've positioned it just like you would position to write your name? So what if we magically painted in the air imaginary lines and stuff? They're pretty small, right? So if you hold your paintbrush a little bit differently, it becomes a different instrument. All of a sudden, it wants to play a little bit. And if this hand that knows how to be correct and right writing your name, making notes in your workbooks at school or at the office. This is a good trick. So pass this instrument to the other hand. So this is my non-dominant hand I'm passing it to. And just by passing it, I've gripped it in a kind of awkward way, kind of a funny way where, what am I going to do with this? So what happens now? All of a sudden, as you can see, I'm holding the paintbrush kind of, well, again, awkwardly, but I can do fun things with it. So what kind of marks am I making in the air now? Bigger ones. And notice my arm, how long it is. And when I'm using it to make a mark in the imaginary paint canvas in front of me, it's wiggling all around. And all of a sudden my hips are moving too. And so this may seem a little crazy, but it will loosen your work up. So even this painting behind me, these two here, those are very loose strokes. So it's through holding your brush in different ways, and you can train your dominant hand to hold the brush that way. So you can maybe pass it back and forth right now. And I'm going to grab the second paintbrush I asked you to grab. And now I am holding them equally the same. And I want to just get my body moving, get some wiggles out. We're going to get creative. We're not perfectionists here. We're not like stuffy artists. We're creative, playful, curious artists. And so by just, what happens when we move both arms and we're doing all these fun moves, this is going to translate into looser, more connected marks to our creative voice. Isn't that neat? So one thing I want to show you before we move into our actual project today, which I know you guys are itching to get to, I am too. I want to show you this trick I can do. So while I'm talking, I am going to spell my name. And you can see that I'm just talking. I'm not stuttering through my words, but I'm spelling my name, which is, can you guys read it? P-A-U-L-A. I can't even talk as fast as I'm writing. So this is connecting both sides of my brain and letting them just work and work through to the end of my brush by directing them and kind of getting out of my logical way to tell my paintbrush to be creative and get the perfect brush stroke. It just knows, just like it just knows how to spell my name forwards and backwards like a mirror image. So I want you guys to maybe practice with that a little bit later, or press pause and do it now and come back and we'll get into this art project. So
Hey, Paula,
yeah.
We have a couple of questions before we get started already. Questions are already coming in. So for those of us in the chat, if you do have questions, throw them into the chat and we'll ask Paula at a good time and you'll hear her answer. Okay, so this is a two-part question. The first part is, what kind of art do you do? And the second part is all of the art behind you your art?
Yeah, great questions. Okay, so I kind of skipped over that part of myself. This is all my art, and I have a lot of different styles. So what kind of art do I do? I kind of do the art that I need to do when I get to the canvas. Sometimes the canvas knows before me. So if you can see behind me here, I've got, this is a mindful mark piece that I did, and it's just on paper. And here's like a more realistic painting of flowers, and this is done in watercolor. And this guy he's really big. He's like 5 feet long. And this is a mark making piece that's really abstract. And this piece is really colorful. So I guess I'm known for colorful combinations of art and anything from drawing to painting and mixed together. When I started with collage, and I'd use collage and what we call mixed media art, combining different kinds of paints and instruments and tools, products to create your final product. And I love that. It's kind of a layering sculptural process. So I did a lot of collage at the beginning, and I don't do as much now, but I still love to do it. And I love teaching it. So keep your eyes peeled for a new workshop coming with Jute School.
Awesome. Thank you, Luke and Addison. I hope that answered your question. Okay, Paula, proceed.
Okay, cool. So if you guys want to switch the camera, we're going to go down to my awesome art desk, and I'm ready here for you. So on my desktop, you can see all the supplies we were talking about before, and I just have a piece of paper ready for us to get creative on. And I started with one piece of tape, and if you're ready to follow along with me, grab some tape in your paper, and we're just gonna add some tape to the edges. This does two things. Can you guess what they might be? It holds your art paper down to your surface so it doesn't shift around and get wrinkly. And one other thing, it kind of puts this beautiful frame across your paintings. So at the end, you might have something even more fancy to put on your wall. So once you get those pieces of tape put in there, I want you to really press them down onto the edge of your paper and your table to make sure there's no ripples or bubbles so the water can't squeeze through there. And this, see how many times I've gone around? Maybe 3 or 4 times. I can feel it squishing down further. So that's a super good way to start. And now if you have that white paint, I'd love for you to get it out. And we're gonna go crazy at the beginning. We're gonna just put some white paint straight on our canvas. And what I'm doing is taking the biggest brush I have, and I'm actually gonna use my non-dominant hand. And I'm just gonna swirl around this white paint on this heavy cardstock kind of watercolor tablet paper that I showed you earlier. I think I got this probably at like the Michaels or an art supply store, like Kensington Art Supply Store would have something like this. Nothing fancy. And if you had printer paper, this is exactly what I would do. And the reason I'm doing white first is 2-part. One is it's making our paper a little bit sturdier. And I'm going to show you an example of some previous pieces that have had, this is actually quite thin paper and it's really sturdy. It's not even flopping down. That's a mindful art piece. So this is one reason for putting the white down, is it makes your paper sturdier. And if you're curious about what brand I'm using, this is the Peebo Studio Acrylics. I love the way this paint shines up. It's got the most beautiful gloss. So you're swirling your paintbrush, switching hands maybe, and this is a great way to loosen up. That's the second reason. Sometimes people get a little bit anxious with, oh my goodness, a big clean piece of paper or canvas. So this is just a lovely way to enter in. And then because I've got all this white paint on here, I'm going to use that some more. So I'm going to dip into some water, and I'm just using this type of watercolor. And this set over here is kind of mucky and dirty, which I kind of love. So I'm going to start with where my heart just said, go for yellow. Nothing else but, ooh, look at all those colors. Yellow looks yummy. And now I want to just sort of play with pushing and twirling. Did you guys remember to take a deep breath? Once we get into the painting part, you know, you can kind of just settle down and move your body a bit. Maybe you want to stand up a bit and just see what happens when you move to a different position. So I'm standing in front of my canvas now. And remember how I said put some white paint straight down onto your paper? Well, now I want you to have, do you have a palette? I might have forgotten to tell you to get one of those. I'm going to squeeze some white paint right here. And I'm going to do a lot because I know with this process, I love to dip into a pile of wet paint. So I went for like a toonie size of white paint in there. And so I'm just going to dip into the edge and I'm going to grab some. I'm just going to go down in the same spot. And you know what we're doing? We're just finding little patterns, little white spaces, and kind of rubbing and scrubbing. See how I'm pushing and pulling? And I just want you to enjoy the feeling of that, the tracks it's making on your paper, maybe swirls, movements. And it's kind of safe right now because we're just using one color. There's not a ton of water on our brush. It's kind of dry, which is kind of an interesting way to paint. And I'm leaving some stuff blended and some stuff still white. And my way of playing in this environment is to do it until my paintbrush gets kind of dry and needs a new color or something like that. Or new, like it's just an opportunity to use up what's on my brush and then maybe freshen up my brush and go back with a sloppy kind of mucky brush into there and see what happens. Move that around a bit. And it's also an opportunity just to change your brush. So what if I went in for some white on almost white? That's kind of fun. And now with this new shape of brush, it kind of just lets me play differently. I want you to notice when you're playing and moving a brush around, what feels good? Is it the sound of the brush moving around? The squishy, scratchy sounds, can you hear that? I know some artists who paint solely on how it sounds. And every artist I've talked to has a way they enter into a piece of art. They have a warm-up. And so this could be your warm-up. Or this could be your way to just get quiet and have some alone time. With this COVID thing, we've got a lot of people in our houses, don't we? And sometimes we just need our own space, and this is a lovely way to just sort of maybe even get quiet with your siblings. And if we've got any parents or my friends online, have we lost a signal here, guys?
We have, Paula.
Oh dear. Oh, we're back.
We are.
Yeah. Okay. So if we have some parents on, this is a process that I teach to all ages. This is not just a kids workshop. So you could do this in a sketchbook and do the same process. You could throw some white paint, or if you have gesso, and sturdy up your pages and just throw down some paint and let it dry before you close it. This is a great way to build your creative practice. So doodling is another way of talking about mark making. Did you guys notice I went into some red paint and made it pink and then scribbled around? And I can almost use my paint, my canvas as a palette, because I kind of like that color there, and I want to bring some of it down here where this white area might not show up completely, has got some amazing layers. And so there's the thing, layering. That's what I love to do, is kind of making marks and making texture, but not adding anything that's making the texture. It's just from the layering. So I'm just adding some white to my brush when it kind of runs out, and I'm still enjoying working with this ready pink color. But if you've moved on and you're onto your third color, that's okay. So what are some tips on how to like blend these colors from one to the next? It's the white and it's the scrubby action for me, but you have your own sort of creative mindful mark. Yours might be looking very much like you right now and not so much like me. And that's okay, because this whole exercise is about you kind of connecting with a mindful exercise of creativity. I just grabbed this weird ochre color. I say weird because it's not really in my wheelhouse of colors, but it's a lovely color. So I'm going to use it. So sometimes we can just do piles of color, right? And if you don't like it, you want to adjust it, maybe try adding some white. And I'm just scribbling in a doodly kind of way. When I was in school, for me to focus on what the teacher was saying, I did a lot of doodling in my journal or in my workbooks that we were working on, in my binders or the books, you know, just to help me focus and help me listen. Do you guys do that too? Do we have any questions, you guys?
Hey, Paula,
Yeah.
how did you discover that this really put you at ease?
Oh, that's a great question. So I think when we're, one time, I'll tell you a story. One time I was in my art studio and I had just had surgery. And so I was feeling pretty slow and I wasn't feeling too energetic to do a big painting with lots of movement. And so I had some friends in my studio and they were all painting and they were all chatting. And I was kind of tired. And so I just started painting a little doodle like this, a little mindful mark. And it took me from a place of feeling a little bit anxious to really grounded and centered. And at the end of it, I kind of thought it was beautiful too. And it helped me, it just helped me sort of process where I was sitting moments before I started it. And so, what I think it helps us do is sort of slow down, and you can kind of have your thoughts filter through, and you can decide to think about them or let them go as you're just moving color around and choosing to focus on what color feels right, what mark feels right. And you'll notice, I think even your breathing changes and you sort of feel your posture relax. Does that answer your question?
That's great. Thanks.
Yeah.
When you teach this, what do you notice with your students?
Oh, that's another good one. So we've taught this class, I've taught this class with a friend of mine, Michelle, and in a different kind of way, but we've taught it in groups of like 60 people or more. And I've taught this to a Montessori of children of age 2 and 3, which was pretty amazing. And the class quietens down. You know, you come into class and the bell rings and you all sit down and you can almost feel the whole class vibrating because everyone's so excited and they have so many stories to share. And you got that kind of pulsating energy in the room. And you start to do a mindful exercise like this one, and everyone's voices get a little quieter and they slow down. It's like the pulse of the room just slows right down. So en masse, when we've taught the adults or the Montessori, it's quite exciting because the din of the room slows to a pace. It's very peaceful. So I just moved to my left hand, and I think I've done this for so long that sometimes my body just knows skip. I went into mark making there as I was storytelling to you guys by just sort of like this autopilot. Do you guys ever get in the car and you get to your destination and you wonder, whoa, how do we just do that? That's that autopilot mode, just a mode that your body knows so well. It can do it without you thinking too much, kind of like that exercise where I was spelling my name in the air. It just knows my name so well. It doesn't have to think with big processor going on. So I moved to my left hand. It helped me loosen up a bit. It helped me change my pace. And my left hand got tired now, so I've just passed it to the right hand again. And because we've sort of slowed down in our teaching right now, and I'm feeling a little quieter, I'm moving to different marks. And so this mindful exercise is great to do for a classroom of kids all at the same time, just to bring sort of a consensus of energy, of mindfulness to the room, because it's not because you're instructing each of us to be quiet. and demanding that. It's because the process gets you there, which is kind of a beautiful thing when you're teaching, right? And so what we want to do in this workshop and this practice is to just notice the marks that you make when you doodle, that you repeat. They're like forms that I'm doing, as you can tell. I have the sort of Dobby line. I have the loop-de-loop circles that connect, half moons. And I have the flowy circles. And then I have the big swashes of color. Those are my go-to marks that I can do on autopilot. And so as you're creating right now, you're probably noticing that you are finding a different mark on top of the marks that you're seeing me do. And that's okay. Like sometimes to get there, we need to like imitate. And then through the imitation, your own style, your own voice starts coming. I have a fun story to tell you. I was thinking about how building an art practice is good for our souls, as our bodies, our minds, and it's really good for our art. Our art gets better when we do more. So sometimes when I'm talking to adults or kids, they say, well, I'm not very artistic at all. I'm better at bicycling or something like that. And I will always say, yes, and I bet you could create some really great skills if you kept practicing as much as you rode your bike, if you practice that much in your art making. So mindful art making is one of those great practices to get you getting more creative. Because it's like if you've had a campfire and you put a log on the fire gets bigger, right? So every time you add another log, it gets more creative. So if we add more creative practice, our creativity gets bigger. Isn't that a neat idea?
Hey, Paula, we've got another question. Oh, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Our friends Luke and Addison are asking now, what was your inspiration for this workshop?
Oh, thanks for asking, guys. My inspiration for this workshop was through COVID. You know, we're all a little bit stressed right now, and things are getting a little bit better with things opening up. But it was a pretty stressful few months. And so I was thinking, you know, what would be great to share with all of you is a process that will help you guys feel better. So because I hope you guys are finding some joy in just sitting here and not worrying about what kind of art we're making. You're just sort of grooving with mixing some paint colors, swirling around on your canvas. Doesn't it feel good? That was sort of my inspiration, just to share a way for you guys to feel creative and finding some connection to how you're really feeling. I bet you could have some amazing conversations with a friend or sibling if you did this over Zoom or even in the same room, because you're both so focused on just kind of squishing colors around on your papers, right? So that's my inspiration. What do you think?
That's great. Thank you. It would be good too for the family members that you don't get to see right now, right? Like your grandma, grandpa, or aunts and uncles. If you could do this with them, that'd be pretty cool.
Totally. I've been doing live Zooms with my friends, and because we're so busy catching up. And so here's what one of my friends said. My friend Michelle told me that live Zooms were really fun with her friends, but the art Zooms were awesome because she didn't have to stare at the screen the whole time, which kind of gets like maybe after a while, like not as fun and maybe a little bit awkward. So having something to focus on, but still carry on a really meaningful conversation, that's something that she has incorporated into her life right now. And things are a little bit different with COVID, and they might not get back to normal too soon. But these are things that we can do. We can make exciting new habits with our family and our friends. So the camera and the lighting is sort of shifting a bit on for you guys, but right now I wish you guys could see what I can see in here. And so what I see is some grays and blues and yellows and a little bit of the blush pink and the true yellow over there. And they're just, oh, the layers, that makes me so excited. So I'm going to protect that area for a little while and move to a new area. But these kind of moments where you're like, wow, I kind of love that. This is something I would tell you to put in your creative toolbox. Does anyone have a creative toolbox out there? I do. And what is in my toolbox are all the little favorite things I love about making art and ideas that come to me. So like that log building scenario, if you keep building your creative juices, ideas will come to you in the night while you're dreaming or as you're falling asleep or maybe as you're waking up, and you'll get these awesome ideas like, what if I tried this? And so that's a great thing to happen, but you have to capture the idea and put it in your creative toolbox. And I'll tell you why, because sometimes our brain plays tricks on us. It'll say, oh, we'll remember that for next time. And the next time you sit down at your canvas and you're sitting there racking your brain, trying to remember what was that creative genius idea I had that day that idea came to me. Well, we don't remember because not all the memories are always stored very well, right? So if we have a little sketchbook where we can capture our ideas, then when we want to sit down and do an art activity, we can reference, hey, we thought it would be really, really cool to put a boy on a skateboard flying down a mountain with a parachute behind him. And because you say all the words, the visual that you saw that day when the idea came to you will kind of snapshot attach, and you'll be like, ah, I remember, totally. That's one of my hot tips for you. So that is a creative toolbox moment.
Paula, quick
Yeah.
question. Do you ever do poetry or creative writing after doing this type of process?
Oh, what a great idea. You know, I don't know if I'm aware that I would go straight to it, but in workshops, we've done that. So knowing that we've sort of opened the creative toolbox wide open and your voice is maybe exploding, it seems like it's way easier to express because we've created this mindful sort of playground where we're accessing all sorts of ideas. So journaling after a workshop is tremendous. And I guess in a way, one of the things that comes up for me is that toolbox idea. I often will ask my students to have their sketchbook or their notebook and to note down ideas, poems, words, combinations of colors. Note all of that stuff down as you're doing it. So it's not quite poetry, but hey.
Now, do you ever try to use complementary colors, or do you just go to a color that you're drawn to?
So that's a good question, Karen. Like I am with the mindful workshops, I don't often bring that part of the lesson in just because I don't always want to complicate our choices. I want us to intuitively just grab a good color that feels good for you. However, I probably, because I love knowing my color families and how they interact, I probably make those choices intuitively, knowing that I don't want to make too much of a muddy color, or I want to make more contrasting colors, even in this mindful arena that we're in. So what is a complementary color? Does anyone know? On the YouTube, let's see if anyone can respond to what is a complementary color. I think Mandy talked about color in the color wheel on her workshop. Was anyone listening that day that's on today?
We're just asking to see.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So I'll wait to see if the answer comes, and I'm gonna tell you guys, like, if you're watching me, you'll see that I've been building and scrubbing and mark making from the marks that I like to do. And another one I love to do is use the back side of my paintbrush and to kind of draw through the wet paint. So this green paint that I just put down is a little bit wet, and I'm just sort of marking. And this isn't completely wet. Can you hear that? So you kind of hit dry patches and wet patches. That's one of my favorite things to do. So when you're doodling, do you remember a certain mark that you always do? I know what mine is. It's a flower. It's like a 5-petaled flower. And I think now would be a good time to show you. I'm going to use a pencil, just a regular pencil, and go over top here somewhere. I've been protecting this pure yellow here for some reason, not putting any layers on it. So I'm just going to use my pencil, much like I was using my paintbrush. And this is my doodly flower. And I've been doodling this flower since I was a little girl. I've got some yummy paint on it. I'll just rub it off on my towel. And this painting is a little bit wet, so it's not a great time to add your markers and stuff. But if we were just, I'm going to switch this one out and bring one that I did earlier. And while this one's drying, we can come back to it when it dries, you know. So I'm going to just put that on the floor beside me. And so we're working in a lot of pale pastel shades because we're using white. This is the same kind of paper. And as you can see, this one doesn't have as much lines and dots on it. And that's okay. I was in a different frame of mind then. So it's kind of neat. You'll see if you're a bit angry and you've got a lot of energy and you just need to work something out, maybe your marks are more furious and they're faster, they have faster energy in them. I just went into the green that was on my palette because that was such a pretty minty green, and there was so much of this color family, this sort of purpley pink color, and I thought, let's put some contrast on there. Do we have any complementary color answers?
No, not yet.
Okay, well, I'm gonna reveal the secret.
Awesome.
So on my paint palette here, here's the red, and guess what? Straight across from it is this complementary color. That's not the rule on this whole palette, but so red and green are opposites on the color wheel. What does that mean, complementary and opposites? Well, with friendships, it kind of means you complement each other even though you're different. So that's kind of what it means with paint colors too. And there's 3 sets. Do you guys know what your primary colors are? So primary colors, I know a lot of kids know this one. They're just screaming right now. So red, yellow, and blue. I always think of kids' toys. They're always primary colors. And the opposites of those colors are the secondary colors on the color wheel. So if you mix two colors, red and yellow, what do we get, guys? I'm hearing it screaming. You're screaming from your kitchen tables. Red and yellow make orange. I heard that. So blue and yellow make green. And red and blue make purple. So those are our secondary colors. So if you only have 3 colors that you buy from the paint store, which 3 would you buy? That's right, you'd buy red, blue, and yellow. So when you have those secondary colors and you want to know what their opposites are, I have a special way to remember it. Christmas colors are red and green. Those are opposites. Easter colors are purple and yellow. And what's left? I forget where I left off. Purple and yellow, red and green, orange and I can hear you screaming. Red and blue and orange aren't a holiday color, but they're the Oilers colors.
Hey, Paula, we have about 20 minutes left.
Oh,
just
cool.
So you know.
Thanks. Okay, so this one is what I'm going to say is a hot mess. And I wanted you guys to see a hot mess because sometimes as artists, we only like to show our perfect selves. And in our perfection, that keeps us pretty tight, right? So even though this one isn't done, I know this one's going to turn out to probably be the best one ever. It just needs more layers, right? Sometimes you just got to remember that paintings can be ugly for a little while. They have to have a bit of an ugly duckling side. So we're going to come back to this guy. He's still wet a little bit, but if you don't have all the tools that I recommended, like the jelly pens and such, if you have the white or the black acrylic paints or just the black from the watercolor, this is quite a lovely circling tool. So one of the things that you can do to continue your process of mark making is use a contrasting color. My favorite is to use black. So I'm just going to go inside of the little shapes and do more marks. And you could do this all over your painting. And you can be symmetrical about it, like every blue circle gets a polka dot. Or you could just be random about it. There's no rules. And this is where, for me, I really like to slow down and get kind of hypnotic about just doing the same action again and again and again. And using a long paintbrush like this allows for some really nice dots. So I'm just going into the black paint with not too much water in my brush, because if we did, it would kind of flow out. So this is one way of marking, and the paints are pretty dry across here. What other marks do you like to make? Plus signs are one of my favorites. So you can make small ones and you can vary the size and cluster them into little areas. And if you ever use stencils, this black section that we're adding is sort of what I would feel like is like adding a stencil, but this stencil is your personal mark. It's like your thumbprint. So I kind of look at the negative space on my piece of art, and I think what would make it more interesting. I don't want to cover up and so that I can't see the underlayers, but maybe it's a bit boring and maybe it just needs one more layer. So that one had a couple layers and I added the black, and then that's sort of sitting pretty there. And this big flower here, I want to do something fun with that, but maybe not the paintbrush. I'll show you a different tool. I'm gonna show you, oh, a crayon. How about a black crayon? So this is like how you intuitively pick so that it resonates with you. You know, you can kind of survey your choices with all your supplies and think, how would a crayon feel right now? Do I feel like a crayon mark right now? No, I feel like something slower or something juicier. Like, have you ever heard of these guys before? They're gelatos. They're soft and creamy. And they're like a crayon, but even softer. So I'm just tracing over. So I wanted to talk to you guys about this building an art practice. Some of you might be budding artists and you want to know, like, how do I get better? And I will tell you, it's routine. Make a routine. So I, at one point, wanted to learn how to draw. So I got myself a time each day that I would sign on to a tutorial and I would learn about drawing. And soon enough, I became a pretty good drawer. What was the other thing? When life gets kind of busy and I don't have a lot of time to do mindful creative art because I'm busy and whatnot, I make my art super accessible. And so what does that mean? I'm going to switch to jelly pen, guys. I'm going to go inside my flower petals and I'm going to just do a bunch of lines. I love dots and lines, guys. Those are my marks. So when I was getting really busy, after being at home for a long time, my art practice got sacrificed for all the fun things I was doing outside the house. So I started a rule. I would have to have my morning coffee, which I loved, with 5 minutes of art. And to make that super easy, I put my sketchbook and a few of my favorite art tools in a little bucket in the area where I used to always have my art. And guess what? I formed a daily practice of making art. And then it wasn't so much of a chore. It was like, it was fun. So I encourage you to, if you want to get better at something with art, you can do it. Sure, there's some natural talent, but a lot of our art skills are just built on practice and doing.
Hey, Paula, question
Yeah.
for you. Do you have any artists that you follow who do mark making quite often or mixed media? Do you have any favorites out there?
I do. I have a favorite. She's from the States. Her name is Miss Stell Kirking. And Miss Stell is, I'm just scratching on this purple's not working, you guys. Miss Stell Kirking, she is an artist that uses Instagram and YouTube, and she has lots of free tutorials. And she, like me, also has an illness, and so she is often at home. And so she's built a creative life around her art practice at home and teaching and making art. So she uses a very intuitive practice as well, like I do. She loves to hear the scrub of materials and tools. You'll probably, if you watch any of her work, notice a lot of similarities. We connected really well on Instagram and YouTube over the years because we've got so much in common in our languaging, and that's really neat. So yeah, she's one of my favorite. She's the first one that comes to mind. So you guys are following these little marks I'm making, and this kind of jelly pin portion of this mark making, if this, like, you could have this piece dried in your sketchbook or something, and like you could curl up on the couch and have a movie going in the background, or a family conversation, and you guys could all be doing the dry part, because like this could just be a bunch of markers or a bunch of jelly pins all on the kitchen table, outside on the lawn. You could share your favorite marks. Like, have you thought about doing a different mark? Because right now I'm doing all the same marks, like get inspiration. So I'm going to try doing something different now. I'm going to do some of these.
Do you ever use cross hatching or anything?
Yeah, maybe I do. Let's see. You know what I love to do? I shall share I do dots a lot. Not as much cross hatching, but that's a good one. Do you guys know what cross hatching means? It means to do this, where you do lots of fine little lines and then crosses across them. And you can do that to shade things. I'm doing it with a jelly pen, which is pretty fun. So this is one of my favorite tools. Just looks like a regular pencil, but this is a 9XXB, and actually Miss Kirking told me about this one. So this is like a pencil because it's made from some sort of graphite, but it's just black. There's no gray in it, and it doesn't move very much when you put it onto paintings and stuff. It's almost fixed as soon as it goes on. Like, it's not water soluble. It doesn't bleed very much if you rub it. It's not the best tool for sketching or anything, but it's a great mark making tool. Here's some more cross hatching for Karen. And when I do cross hatching from now on, I'm going to think of Karen.
Got a couple questions for you, Paula.
What's that?
These are coming in from the chat. There's a question. What inspired you to be an artist?
Oh, wow. That's a great question.
I know.
Well, when I was a young girl, I just liked everything creative. My aunt was creative, my mom was creative, and my grandma was creative. My brother, who was older than me, was a really good drawer. And I went to a sort of creative school. So there was always a different way of looking at things. And I just loved doing things creative. And then as an adult, I knew I loved to be creative, but I just didn't find the right art to connect with how I was feeling about wanting to be creative. And so it was through a lot of trial and error, a lot. And so what does that mean? It means, like, I tried watercolor, and I tried oils, and I tried ceramics, and I tried woodworking. That's a lot of different tries, right? And then I was getting into digital art, and this is a long time ago when computers and internet were hardly born yet. And I found digital art was really cool. They were making art to go on skateboards and snowboards and stuff, and I was like, that is amazing. What are they doing to make that happen? And so I emulated that style of art through collage and paint. And I did that because I could layer different sort of textures. So there'd be like an airbrush look, and then there would be like a stamp of a very graphic sort of image of a guy, or something graphic like that. And I started emulating that into my own creative practice. What was even the question I got there with?
What inspired you to be an artist?
Yeah. And so I guess the other part was being sick for so many years. I had a chronic illness. And so going to work every day and being able to come home and just chill out with some art, I was like, I've gotta find a way to be an artist all the time. And I think we're all really creative beings. I just think it's a muscle that we exercise or don't exercise. And in my case, I was always surrounded with creativity. It was just a matter of finding a way to make it my creative life, my career.
Okay, I've got 2 more questions. Kate
What's that?
wants to know what's your favorite color, and Becky wants to know what's your favorite animal.
Oh my goodness. So favorite color, not fair. You're talking to an artist. And so I bet you most artists don't, I don't know. I don't know if I can have a favorite color. I love teal and I love blues for my home decorating choices. And in my art lately, there's been a lot of pink and teal together. And for some reason, this has been described as my cotton candy set of colors. So I can never pick one color that is my favorite, but maybe art combinations of colors in my art. So I love seeing how colors play with each other when they're opposites and they let each other sing, and then yeah. And what was the other question? My favorite animal? Well, as a pet goes, I have a puppy, I have a dog. She's not a puppy anymore, she's oldie. So I love having dogs. I've always had a dog. And I love them because they're sensitive and I'm looking in my studio for something to inspire me for more marks. You guys, I want to show you another piece. So dogs are sensitive and playful and they're funny. So this is a piece I did a little while ago. Sometimes I look at other pieces as oh yeah, I kind of liked the way this arc was like a shooting rainbow out of some clouds, you know? When you get mindful, you can really start remembering what you thought when you made that exact mark. Bubbles that kind of float off.
I need to clarify, the animal question was from our friend Alora. So shout out to Alora. Thanks for the awesome question. There's another question for you, Paula. What is the largest painting that you've ever done?
Ooh, that's a fun question. So the largest painting I've ever done was 2 years ago. We were commissioned, some friends of mine, for the Marriott show homes in Calgary. And they had this huge house that they needed huge paintings for. And it was 5 by 6 feet. And that piece was all mark making, you guys. And so it was called Wisteria Waterfall. And yeah, it was all seafoam kind of colors. You can actually see the piece if you go to their show home in, what's that called? On like Premier Way, or yeah, that kind of neighborhood. Wow, they have like an amazing supportive network for local artists. So that was my biggest piece.
I think you also have a picture of it on your website or Facebook page, don't you, Paula?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I have a gallery on my website. You can look at some of my pieces there. Wisteria Waterfall. So we talked about gift cards at one point, about maybe having a supply. So I won't do it to this piece, but this is a really cool way to spread paint. I'm going to put this one down to dry for a bit. So if you have just regular copy paper and you want to get down some paint to layer, you can just take and scrape it and then do that. Like, how much fun is that? And so this mindful mark making, if you do it on thin paper, like printer paper, we can do a class sometime together, or you can just invent your own art process of taking just mucky, fun mark making paper and use it for collaging. How's that for genius, right?
Hey, Paula, are
Yeah.
any of your collage pictures on your gallery on your website?
Do I have any on there?
Yeah.
My most recent collage stuff would be the ladies. That is kind of like it's called image transferring, and so it's a type of collage. But when I first came onto the art scene, I was doing huge, big collage pieces with paint. So I would paint a big background, and like one of my famous scenes is like a wheat field, and then there's like a lady in the wheat field picking up something, and then there's like lots of different images collaged in, like a Ferris wheel's in there. So those classic ones that people know me to do collage, I don't think those are on my website anymore because they're sold.
Now, you're going to be doing Jupe Camp online with us this summer. And
That's right.
is it true you're going to be doing a couple collage classes? And will we learn how to do the image transfer in that?
Ooh, that's a good question. We should just definitely put the image transfer in there. Kids are really good at image transferring, and adults sometimes love it and sometimes don't love it. And I'll tell you why, because it's really picky and time consuming. So you either love it or hate it. So yeah, we can definitely add image transferring. So it's what we should plug is all you people that want to draw, start drawing, and your favorite pieces you can photocopy, and then we'll learn how to image transfer them into bigger pieces.
I have a question, Paula, and
yeah.
Maybe some folks who are doing this project along with you have the same question. When you're doing mindful mark making, how do you know you're done? How do you know your art project is done?
That's a great question. So sometimes you don't know, and sometimes you do know. How's that for vague? So I will show you some examples. Like this piece I'm working on right here, it's not translating as great on the camera, but there's some interesting things happening in here. And this was going to be probably a piece that would inspire less marks rather than more. This piece, this one's a little bit intense. Look how many marks there are in this, and so many colors, right? So this was done 10 times, and I just kept going because I needed to, if that makes sense. And so these mindful mark pieces, because they don't have to be awesome finished works of art, they can just be a snapshot of that day and the way you were feeling. That's okay. So you can overdo these pieces and mindfully know that that's where you were. But what I love about looking at this piece is I know where I was that day, and I needed to work out a lot of little marks and a lot of little ideas. And that's obviously what's translated here. So you can start to sort of take almost like a journal, a diary of how you're feeling from your mindful marks. Now this piece, when I look at this one just makes me feel calm and centered. It's really cloudy, and it's more contrasty on the video, but this one has a lot more negative space, right? So maybe I was feeling just a lot more calm that day, or maybe tired, right? Who knows? So this piece, this one is using black and no white in the mixture. So just this is coffee paper, and just going straight with the watercolors to the paper. And I did tape this one down, so there's the nice clean edge. And just this one I layered. I probably worked on this for 3 different nights, and I just kept going and going, and it just felt right to do that. And so in bigger paintings with mark making, here is one we haven't seen that was sort of not on the wall. This is a mark making piece, but on canvas and with bigger marks and bigger paint brushes. And this is a work in process because I didn't know if it was done or not. And so sometimes paintings don't tell you right away if they're done. And one time I had a student, his name was Doug, and he said, "Your paintings don't talk to you, Paula." And I said, "Yeah, okay, Doug." And that was his first class. He came back a week later and he says, "My paintings talk to me." And I said, "Good, what did they say?" And they said, "It's done," or "It wasn't done." So they told him a story. And it's funny because if you watch and listen, your creative mindfulness, it'll tell you whether you're done or not. And sometimes through over marking or over painting, you learn, and that will inform you on the next piece, whether or not you want to stop or not because of the time before. Here's another example of a piece that's it's both busy and calm, with lots and lots of black marks, but lots of pale colors in the background. And it's fun to see the darker blue shift into lighter, and then gets a little pink and move into a darker pink. So when you guys are making these sheets on your own time, you can just remember that you're shifting one color to the next, and you're layering in quadrants of color and quadrants of shape, and changing the shape as you layer onto each other. And then you can start making definite marks with your paintbrush, and you can outline those with your paintbrush in a contrasting color, or outline them with all these fun tools like crayons and pencil crayons and jelly tools.
There's a
Okay,
couple
really quick. Yeah,
questions,
a
Paula.
question from the chat is, how many paintings do you think you do in a year?
Oh my goodness. It's a great question. I just moved recently, and the answer is a lot. I had to move a lot of paintings, and I realized, yeah, that's a lot of paintings. So, well, let's say one a week would get you 52 paintings.
Awesome. Last question coming in is, how can I take a class or workshop with Paula Timm after this?
Oh, fun. Well, for sure with Jude School at the Jude camp coming up this summer. And we'll be sharing some information about that coming up soon. And on my website, you can follow me at paulatimm.com and look at the workshops that are up there. You can always get me for a private Zoom workshop anytime.
That's awesome. Paula, one final question. The piece you were working on today, are you able to put that so we can see it again?
Yeah. Here we go.
Awesome. I'm wondering if you could, when you look at that piece, give me 3 words about that piece.
Playful, curious, and creative.
Playful, curious, and creative. So good. I'm going to put us back into gallery view. Thank you, Paula. For you today, for those who did a painting, we would love to see them. And of course, share with us the 3 words that come to mind when you look at your painting. You can tag us at Jude School on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. This video will also be posted on jubileeauditorium.com. It'll be, of course, on our YouTube channel. And of course, our friends at Global Family Zone will have it on there as well. Anything else to add, Paula?
I wanted just to tell you, our next live stream is on June 9th with Brendan Boyd. I really hope you guys come. I had so much fun. I hope you guys took something away from mindful mark making today. I can't wait to see what you create. I'll be looking on the Jude feed and probably see you at Jude Camp soon.
That's great. Thanks, Paula. So next workshop, as Paula said, is June 9th with Brendan Boyd, and this will be junk puppets. So watch for the details on that. That'll be coming out. Have a great day. Don't forget to tag us in your creations, but also share your 3 words that come to mind with your mindful marks. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see
Thanks
you
so much.
next week.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.